Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the show this evening. Tonight's guest, we have Alex, organizer with All of Us or None, and we're going to be talking about the box, the ban the box. You got the applications on jobs or apartments or whatever it is, and they kind of discriminate. You put your X on the box, and then you work for 4 or 5 months or whatever, and then they fire you. So we want to bring on Alex to talk about the ban in the box. And we want to welcome you to the show tonight, Alex.
Thank you. How are you tonight?
Doing great, doing great. We're glad to have you on the show tonight. We want to talk about this box. What is this box?
So first, let me give you a little background about myself and where I'm from. So my name is Alex Berliner. I am a formerly incarcerated woman from San Francisco. I got locked up when I was 19. I only did a couple of weeks, but in those short amount of time that I had did inside the county jail, I had learned a lot and seen a lot, and I made a lot of connections with people who were doing long periods of time inside and who were about to be sent to prison. So in that, I realized that I'm somebody who's infected with the system, right, and impacted by the system. Right. And even if I just did a tiny amount of time, I think what's important is recognizing what I experienced, and that seeing the other side of the cage is something that not everybody sees and has been able to build an understanding of what that feels like. Right. And so somebody needs to speak out for people who are left behind.
I agree.
And to speak for us when we come from outside the cage.
Right. I agree.
And so All of Us or None started about 15 years ago. It's almost 15 years. It started in around 2003. And it was there was a meeting that happened between a bunch of formerly incarcerated people, and they sat around a house in Oakland and decided that we need to talk about issues that are going on in the community, and particularly affecting people returning from prison. And so an issue that came up was that there's a box that shows up on applications, whether it's employment, housing, education, welfare, that asks if you've ever been convicted of a crime or been arrested, or like the question varies from application to application. But the main point of the box is to ask if you've ever been incarcerated or convicted. Right. And so we realized that because of all the different issues that it was hitting on, from education to employment, that we wanted to first tackle employment. So we started the Ban the Box law after seeing something being passed in Hawaii that was speaking to the box. And so we kind of kicked it off. I wasn't there at the beginning of this inception, but I ever since have been like picking up and seeing the growth. Like when I started at All of Us or None, we had reached about 17 states, and now it's 20 plus states that have ban the box laws. Really? Okay. We've also gotten the president to issue a executive memorandum for ban the box to the White House, particularly, even though our real struggle and fight with him is to make sure that he pushes some sort of executive order to ban the box on federal contracting in the United States, because federal contracting in this country makes up about a quarter of jobs. So that's 25% of all the jobs in this country are federal contracted jobs. And they don't ban the box on those. And so that's a big thing. If we have 70 million people in this country affected by incarceration, I know that 70 million is not, I mean, it's just not, the numbers are disproportionate to each other. Sure. So we have to make sure that we are meeting ban the box at the rate that people are coming home from prison and needing employment.
Right. Well, people going into prison, they're going for a crime, and they go and they pay their debts to society, so they shouldn't have to come home and be punished again. So the ban in the box, I think that's a real good something that's being attacked, and hopefully it works. We need that done, because people coming home, they need jobs. They need to be able to get places to live, and right now, if you have a felony, you can't live certain places.
Yeah, and in a lot of places it's barred, and so that's something that we've also been trying to tackle with Ban the Box, is making sure that it also applies to housing. And so an issue that we're actually having around that, though, is that in a lot of public housing, including HUD, is that there's always some sort of clause in their policy about housing there, that if you have someone who's been convicted of a felony and they show up to your house, and start to live there with you, you can be evicted because of that. And so that's an issue that we're seeing happening all over the place, and we're trying to tackle that with Ban the Box for housing. In San Francisco, we have a special Ban the Box law that has been passed a couple of years ago, that All of Us or None, the Human Rights Commission, and several other organizations in San Francisco got together and started the Fair Chance Coalition, and we got the Board of Supervisors to help us pass an ordinance called the Fair Chance Ordinance, which applies for private employers and for housing in San Francisco. So now housing providers, public housing providers cannot ask you those questions on the box. And if they do, they can only ask up to convictions that are within 7 years, like 7 years or newer. Because that's kind of like...
And that is in effect now?
Yeah, that's in effect right now. So we have the Fair Chance Ordinance. And the same with employment. They can't really ask about your background. I mean, of course, they can still do a background check. But the background check has to only be used to kind of screen you and see if you're telling the truth and... being upfront about it. Right. And the only way that they can really use your background check or your criminal conviction history against you is if your crime that you've been charged and convicted of has something to do with the job you're applying for. So, of course, if you have a bank robbery on you're not going to work at a bank. Right. So it's just kind of common sense stuff. But there's, like, lots of jobs that you can do.
Sure.
So that helps. So in San Francisco, for private employers, the private employer has to have 20 or more employees in order for them to have to comply with the Fair Chance Ordinance law that we have in San Francisco. So if it's less than, they can still ask for that question to be answered on the application. But most employers in San Francisco who are private have more than 20 employees, so it should be no problem. Any franchise, they can't ask the question, and they have to post it in the job application as you're doing it. So if any time you're applying for a job and you're formerly incarcerated, and they have a box on the application, you can actually report this about the box. And if they haven't, like, there's several things on the application that you need to look out for, which is, first, there needs to be a posting saying that they're going to do a background check, but that the law is the Fair Chance Ordinance and that they have to comply with those things. And then the second thing is to check if there's a box on there, and if those things are not complying with what Fair Chance Ordinance wants you to have, then you can report them to the Human Rights Commission. The information for that, though, I want to make sure that people have that. If you find any violations in any job application that you apply for in San Francisco for private employment, including public employment, because we actually also have Ban the Box for the state of California for public employment. So it's most jobs cannot ask that question and have to have this stuff posted. But if you want to report any violations, you do that to the Office of Labor Standards Enforcement within 60 days of the application being submitted and your denial being sent to you. Or with any information that pertains to whatever violations are on the application. And the contact info for that is 415-554-5192, or you can email fce@sfgov.org. And I'll make sure that I can send all this information to you as well, so that you can share that with anybody. But so there's some processes right now. In San Francisco, it's not perfect, but we have one of the only cities in the country that has a private Ban the Box law. The only other state that I can think of at the top of my head I'm still memorizing all of it because it's a lot of progress that we've reached. So the only city that I know in particular outside of San Francisco that has a private ban the box legislation is Austin, Texas, which is like, Texas of all places, but Austin has always been considered kind of like the San Francisco bubble or like the progressive bubble of Texas, kind of like how we are the progressive bubble of California.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's good to know. We want to get that information, and we want to post that on the screen and get this out so people can have this and know how to get in contact with certain organizations to protect this what we have.
Right.
It's a struggle, it's a fight to get this done, and we commend all of us and none for doing this. Dorsey Nunn, he's doing a great job.
Thank you.
So we want to commend him for doing the work that he's doing, and we want to get this posted. But so all of us and none, they're working on the ban the box. They're doing this and this is going throughout California.
Yeah. So in California right now, we have a state law, Assembly Bill 218, which is ban the box for local and state public employment. And then in San Francisco itself, we have the private ban the box. So what needs to be happening around work and legislation that needs to be implemented is that we need other local communities and their legislative branches to take an effort to pass a ban the box law for private employers, because the one that we have here, the San Francisco FCO, only applies for San Francisco City and County. So we need Alameda County to hop on this. We need all of the neighboring counties, especially down south in Southern California. We have a lot more pushback. We have board of supervisors who have made oaths not to go forward with ban the box laws or anything that has to do with any sort of criminal justice reform.
Really?
So we have a lot of really conservative counties down in Southern California who don't like that we're doing this work, and a lot of employers are not meeting the standards in the law that's set up with AB 218.
So these are the people that we vote in.
Yeah, I mean, so, and that's something that brings it back to the voting piece of all of this, is that we have a lot of legislators in other places throughout California who we possibly did not vote for, especially because in California, our voting rights for formerly incarcerated people are very limited. We've expanded it somewhat over the past couple of years. We actually just won a lawsuit to open up voting rights to be expanded to people who are on post-community supervised release and mandatory supervision.
Really?
So the only reason that you could not vote in California is if you are currently on parole or if you are serving a sentence in the county jail under realignment, or if you're in a California state prison. So other than that, you can vote inside of the jail.
So if you're on parole, if you're on probation,
no, you can vote on probation. So the only time you can't vote is if you are in a California state prison or you are on parole. Or if you're in the county jail, you have voting rights, but the only time in the county jail that you can't vote is if you are doing time for a realignment sentence. And realignment was a bill that was passed, AB 109, which released a lot of low-level offenses from having to do their time inside of the prison, which it was problematic as is. I mean, we're seeing a lot of different stuff going on, and so one thing that we wanted to fight for during the voting rights campaign was to make sure that people who were doing time under realignment sentences also had voting rights restored, but that's something that we weren't able to get just yet. We're still fighting for that. This fight never stops. We don't stop until we all get free.
Yeah. Well, like I said, the organization that should be commended, and people need to get on board and help with this, because it's something that's needed in the community here in San Francisco. And we have voting is a lot of power, and people don't believe that that their vote means something. A lot of people say, I don't vote because it doesn't mean anything, but it does. The vote, it means something. So you know, the congressmen, the politicians that get in office, they're voted in, and they can be voted out.
Yeah.
You know, so this is something that people need to look at and read and find out about it, because, like I said, they can be voted out. If they don't want to work for us, you know, they're working against us.
Right, then we're not going to hire them.
Exactly.
And pretty much that is the hiring process of politicians,
Right,
is the community census.
Exactly.
That is so important, because we have these laws like ban the box. Even if you can't vote for a law, if you've been barred because of your former incarceration, going to a hearing at the state legislature, or going to a hearing at your local legislator in City Hall, going to Board of Supervisors meetings, City Council meetings, commission meetings, and expressing your public comment and concerns there is a way that we can become active in civic engagement without having to go to the ballots. And there's many ways of advocacy. I mean, I tell youth all the time that if you can't vote before 18, like, there's ways to make sure that you're heard, so that when we do have laws that are going to be passed, that at least you had your voice included in the law that was written. So there's many different ways that we can attack the system with our power and make sure that it's doing the things that the community needs it to be doing.
Go out, like you say, go out and attend the meetings.
Yeah.
You know, you can voice your opinion in the meetings. You know, sometimes if you voice your opinion in the meetings, people in the meeting that's part of the chair, they'll listen, you know, and vote in your favor. So that plays a big part, you know, participate.
Right, especially too, being a community of people who are heavily disenfranchised and marginalized from the rest of society. For us to show up and do those things, we may have limited resources. But if we could find some time, like once out of the year at the most or least, to show up, because we are the people that are not getting paid to go and lobby for these things. And any opportunity that we can to show up in those spaces is really detrimental to our progress as a people.
Sure it is. Yes. So this is something that's good. I like to bring people on to show, and you know, the community that we have, they watch the show and they see certain things that's going on in the show. This program is really for returned citizens coming home from prison, long time in prison, and we want the community to know who we are coming home from prison. All of us are none. You know, Dorsey is ex-lifer himself. You know, he started the program years ago, and he's doing an outstanding job. And this program is to let society and community know that we were once on the other side, but we're home, we're doing good work in our communities. We're giving back, you know, we're giving back. We're getting an overdue debt. You know? So we're giving back, so this is something that we have to do. If we don't come home and put work in our communities, well, what good are we, you know? And that's what we do today, you know, put work in. You know?
Yeah, and it's important we keep continuing to do the work that we do, because we want to shatter all the stigma that's been put on us as people who have been thrown into a cage and expected not to come home. Exactly. And we got to prove to the structure at bay, which is white supremacy culture, and this racist system, to let them know that just because you thought that we weren't worth anything doesn't mean that that's true. And proving them that we're very smart. Like, you give us a lot of time in a cage by ourselves, we'll think about a lot of good things.
Yeah, something to think about.
Yeah, there was a documentary with George Jackson, and one of the guards is saying, like, don't believe anything he says. He's been in here for so long, and now he's learning all this law stuff. Like, he's just coming up with any type of way to, like, get out of the system. But yeah, what the officer was saying was true. Like, he's spending a lot of time reading these things, but he was turning that into a negative thing rather than a positive thing. And I think, you know, taking as much time to politicize ourselves and educate ourselves and raise our consciousness inside or out of a cage is powerful. And we have to keep encouraging each other to do those types of things. Even when we have systems like capitalism and all this money trying to distract us from supporting each other. Even if we're not going to dedicate our whole lives, we can, you know, plant a seed in somebody's heart and watch our flowers grow and take over the world.
Yes. I say that everybody that goes in prison, sooner or later, one day they're going to come home.
Right.
One way or the other. They're going to come home standing upright, or they're going to be down with a tag on their toe. You know, but the majority of them come home standing upright, and we want them to come home better than they went in. And the majority of lifers that go to prison, when they come home, they don't go back. That's less than 1% goes back into the system, But the ones that stay, they do positive things.
Right.
They come home and get back into the community in which they left because they were part of something before they left.
Right.
So they want to come home and make their communities better than what it was.
Right, and so I think with All of Us or None, one of the biggest things that we are aiming for and striving for is to create that community for people who are coming home to come to, so that they don't feel alone.
Right.
And I mean, we're All of Us or None. We want to make sure that we're all included in this. In everybody from people who are in detention centers because of immigration to people who have been convicted as adults at the age of 15.
Right,
like
exactly.
we want everybody to be a part of this, and not just people who have been convicted, but our family members,
Exactly.
because we do the time with our loved ones
Right.
as well. And the time may be different situations, one side being in a cage and the other side having some sort of freedom. But like Mumia Abu Jamal likes to say, is that we live in an open air prison.
Exactly.
So everything we do is working around incarceration of some sort. So raising our consciousness and making sure that we can recognize that and, support everybody who's experiencing incarceration.
Right. We have attorney Keith Wiley out of Uncommon Law.
Mm-hmm.
He's fighting right now for the youth, that was sent to the prison as an adults.
Right.
He's fighting now to get them, back in court, back in the board, so they can come home.
Right.
I mean, they send a child to prison as an adult. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. Right. But he's fighting diligently to get that looked at and turned around. And Keith Wiley is an outstanding attorney. He was my attorney. I went to board.
Okay, I think attorney. He was. I believe, was that Yogi's attorney as well? Yeah, I believe he was Yogi's attorney too. Yeah.
Yeah, when he was murdered. Yeah. So he's an outstanding attorney, and he's doing outstanding work right now, trying to get this turned around. So we just keep the fight on, to keep the gloves on. Don't take them off.
Right.
You have to keep the fight. Yeah.
And I wanna plug something really quick, because the election's coming up. We only have so many days to register to vote. So people who can't register to vote, please register, especially if you're formerly incarcerated and have had your restriction from voting lifted and now can vote. We have a lot of bills coming up this year. There's a proposition called Prop 57 coming up on the California ballot, and that has to do with youth who are incarcerated or stopping them from getting incarcerated, and then also looking at people who have committed nonviolent offenses and making sure that they can get access to more good time credits. And so what this law would do would make it so that the judge would have discretion over whether a young person is direct filed as an adult versus the prosecutor, because right now the prosecutor has all the discretion to charge a youth as an adult.
Oh, really?
And that's really dangerous and messed up, and we really want to shift that. Of course, we don't trust judges all the way around, but I think that this would be a step towards where we need to go, and showing some sort of improvement with a judge being the person. And of course, with elections, we can vote who our judges are. And if we don't like the judge in place, then we can vote for a new one. Of course, we don't want to vote for new prosecutors, because prosecutors just keep getting harsher and harsher. And I mean, I think the standard that some people want is George Gascon, but that's not the standard that fits for everybody.
No,
so I personally think that we could do better than Gascon for prosecutors. So we need to challenge that and put it into different hands.
Exactly. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we want to commend you,
Thank you.
for the work that you're doing. You're doing outstanding work. And hang in there, keep on. Don't take the gloves off. No,
Right.
Everybody's free,
Right.
And all of us are now. We want to thank Dorsey Nunn for the work that he's doing. He's doing an outstanding job, and he's been fighting for a long time, So we want to thank you for coming on the show this evening, and we want to ask the viewers to watch the show. Watch the show every Saturday night at 7 o'clock on Channel 29. Every other Thursday, the first Thursday of the month and the last Thursday of the month on Channel 76 at 6:30. We have a live show. We're doing the good, bad, and ugly. We have a gentleman that was that was in prison for 40 to 42 years, 2 murders. He was sent to prison with a person that was innocent of a crime that he was tried for. He did 10 years, The district attorney went back after 10 years and got him out of prison. They became good friends. The arresting officer is part of this Good, Bad, Ugly. I had him on last week, and we interviewed him. He went to prison after the arrest, and these people were sent to prison. He went to prison for murder, did 20 years. He got out, and we got the prosecutor that's coming on next week, next Thursday at 6:30. So we got the Good, Bad, and the Ugly, and the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is going to turn out to be all good. So tune in to our show next Thursday on the 6th of October at 6:30, and watch the show. But the Good, Bad, Ugly, that's going to be a beautiful show. But all of us are now, we want to commend the sister for coming on today, being part of the Band in the Box, and we're going to put some information on television so you can see the numbers where you can go on and get this information to help Band in the Box. So we want to thank you for watching the show Saturday night at 7 o'clock, every other Thursday at 6:30 on Channel 76, live show. Thank you for viewing in tonight, and we want to thank you, sister, for coming on the show tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. All right. Good night.
Peace.
Good night.